All right, we are back with Coach to Coach Convos with Westland John Glenn head coach Jason Mensing. And our topic today kind of is on the theme of ideas on getting a job. Jason's got a wealth of experience securing coaching jobs, and we'll mine his experience for some information that will help you out as well. So thanks for coming on, Jason, and just start off by giving us some background on your background as playing and coaching in athletics.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Scott. I grew up as a son of a coach. My dad was a college football coach at Adrian College for most of his career, and then eventually administrator. I went to Tecumseh High School as a player, and upon graduation, I went to St. Joseph's College, which doesn't exist anymore, to play center. And my head coach there that recruited me was a gentleman named Joe Polka, who was a head coach at Saline High School in Saline, Michigan now. And he actually left right before the season, and Brendan Flaherty, who's the head coach of Birmingham Groves in Beverly Hills, Michigan now, took over. So I played that season, with a great season. Coach Flaherty was a great mentor and instructor, and he was a young guy. He was 27 at the time, very enthused. After that season, that staff kind of broke up. Coach Flaherty got hired at Kent State, and I ended up transferring to Adrian College, where my father was coaching, and had a great experience there. Played 3 years, created a lot of memories with a bunch of great guys, and still guys I'm connected to this day, and knew I wanted to go into the coaching profession as a vocation. So upon graduation, I got hired as an intern at the University of Michigan. I did 9 months for Mike Gittleson in strength conditioning at the University of Michigan. My claim to fame was I trained Tom Brady on a regular basis. He probably liked working out with me because I probably was less intense than the other guys, I'm guessing. But we had a great experience there, obviously. And Mike Gittleson was a guru of the strength world back at that time. My goal was to coach football. So Gittleson offered me a GA job, and I actually had turned him down. He told me it'd be the dumbest move of my career. He might be right. But I turned that down to go back to Adrian College as a offensive line coach, strength and conditioning coach, and work in conferences. And my plan at that point was to be a college coach and pursue that. And I liked small college football, so I thought that would be the best thing. I moved my newly married wife and myself into a dorm room that we were going to stay in. And within a couple months, we decided that might not be the best route. And I took a job. I coached that throughout that year, but then took a job at Addison High School that year as a teacher to earn a little more money so that we could live in a home or apartment. I think we were in an apartment at that time. So go to Addison, work for the next season, that school year, and then the next season for a gentleman named Kevin Orman, who became the principal at Addison, eventually Adrian and Onstead High Schools. Great guy, great mentor as well. Taught me a lot about just how to work with people. He had an innate ability to just make everyone feel good, but still in this competitive world. After my second year teaching, my first year as an assistant there, he came to me with the idea of me taking over as a head coach because he wanted to go into administration. He was teaching PE at the time. So he became the athletic director, and I became the head football coach. He helped me throughout the season, through all my screw-ups. We had a really talented team. We went 9-3, and without me, I might have gone 12-1. So we probably underachieved at 9-3, but we had a great group of guys that played hard. Two of our state's head coaches are actually on the team. Scott Kripe was my quarterback, was coach at Central Montcalm, and then Mark Spicer, who was our fullback, is a coach at Sand Creek now. So, but great group of kids that I'm still connected to this day. About January of that year, the superintendent came to me and said, "Hey, I know head coaching jobs are usually open in the winter, and the chances are you won't have a job here next year." So I always appreciated that out of a superintendent, because typically it doesn't happen that way. Typically, you're just out of luck when you're out of luck, and you got to scramble and find ways to make things work. And my superintendent at that time didn't have that perspective, and he kind of gave me an early forewarning on that. And I just started applying all over the state, any job that was open. At that time, in Anchor Bay, Grayling, and Saugatuck were the 3 jobs that were posted first. And I threw applications at all 3, got an interview at Grayling, I actually interviewed all three, but I interviewed at Grayling and got offered the position right away. Went up there and had a great experience. Grayling had won one game the previous 3 years, and we had a great season. Ended up winning 8 games, winning a playoff game. We had changed conferences, which helped us, but also Ben Brock joined our staff and some other guys that ended up being really good football coaches. And we had a young group of kids that were really competitive and tough. So after the season ended, I got some opportunities calling my way. And my thought was to go back down to Illinois County. Adrian High School's job was open and Dundee's job was open. And both were back kind of where I wanted to live and raise my family. And that was kind of the plan. And in the middle, I got a phone call from the guy at Owasso, and it wasn't the athletic director. It was a member of the community. I had a nice conversation with him, kind of looked into it, talked to the athletic director, went down and interviewed, got offered the position. And at the time, financially and other things, I just couldn't refuse it. So took that position, was there for 3 years. We hired some guys on our staff that were incredible people there as well. Our outcome on the field wasn't anything elaborate, but we were very competitive. But I still say to this day, we had a 4-5 team that was one of the better teams I ever coached there in my second year. We had 5 tough losses against great teams, but we beat some good playoff teams and had a really good, fun year. So I was there for 3 years, and then my hometown job came open at Tecumseh High School. So it was my dream job. It was what I always wanted. And I got the opportunity to take it. So I went down there and took it. And they had won one game in the previous 2 years, I believe it was. Year one, we go 6-4, and everyone's excited. And we had a lot of work to do as a program, though, and I was really aware of that. But I thought we could get it done. By year 4, we went 2-7 in a year where we had a bunch of injuries, and I was asked to not come back. So I got just like everything in life, when you get everything you want, it's usually not what you thought it was. So unfortunately, that didn't work out. But my college coach, who was a great mentor, my Jim Lyle, had started the Siena Heights program at that time. So I jumped on with him for a year, kind of being a coordinator of offense. We ran 2 offenses. I ran one of them, and Jeff Hancock, a good friend of mine, ran the other. We had a lot of fun, and we were just trying to get more kids playing football and having a great time playing football. And but I knew I wanted to be a head coach again. So my thought at that point was I needed to find a job within 30 minutes of where I lived, so I could commute. And with the teaching market the way it was there, and I knew that if I was ever going to leave, I was probably going to need to take an administrative job. So it needed to be a smaller school, or else I probably wasn't going to be able to get it into a different school district completely. I'd be a commuting coach, which I didn't have the preference to do. So I interviewed at Whiteford High School, which was 30 minutes on the dot from Tecumseh, on a whim based on a recommendation of a friend of mine. Went down there, had a great conversation with the athletic director, got offered the position. The superintendent kind of advised me that he thought an admin position was going to be open soon. So that, was exciting for me, and took that opportunity. 3 years later, still no admin job. I'm wondering what's going to happen. I end up as an administrator in another school district who was really supportive of me still coaching there at Whiteford. Worked there as an administrator for 3 years, and then worked back into Whiteford as an administrator. So I ended up becoming one. It was about 4 years after I was there, and stayed on as administrator and head football coach for 6 years. I had a great 10-year run there, and then got the opportunity here at Wesleyan John Glenn last year, and different challenges, different phase of my career and life. And frankly, it was time for something different. And even though Whiteford, we loved it there and weren't looking for anything, it just was, the timing was right. And we were called to go to John Glenn, and now we're there doing the work that we are.
Well, and I think, the time that you took the John Glenn job was a lot of people think you look for a job when you need another job, but the reality is you had a great job, you had a great program going, poised to have a really good year the next year, and and you made a move. And I think, that's a lesson for young coaches, is the best time to find a job is when you've got a great job and you're happy in that job and you're not desperate to find something.
Yeah, it's a great point too. And I don't think it is counterintuitive, right? Naturally we think that, we want to, the nature tells us we want to be successful at all costs. But the reality is, as servants of this game, as servants of the young people that we're working with, we really are here to help. And when you're in a situation like we were at Whiteford, where we had an unbelievable staff and we had great players and we had great teaching staff and great community and all these things, and that had worked, and it was 10 years of work by lots of people that got to that point. Like, that wasn't just a magical thing. It was 10 years of investment of myself, along with 100 other people, that got us to that. And at some point when you're in that and you're looking around and you're like, man, this place is awesome, and it can be awesome with you, without you, that it might be time to go move on and try to pour yourself and your servitude into something else. And I think, that was why that calling happened for me. And then to watch them continue to have success has been nothing but great. Whereas you don't always feel that way, if you don't leave on those types of terms. But those guys are still my best friends. I've stopped in 3 times to see kids just to give them hugs, and I'm a fan of theirs. And it's talk about a blessing to be able to step away and still have as much joy seeing your people, your team, have success, whether you're part of it or not. I mean, it's awesome.
That is cool. So you've gotten jobs kind of in different eras of coaching, and I think you'd have to admit the job search process is different in 2021 or 22 when you got the John Glenn job than it was back in the 90s when you got your first head coaching job.
Yeah, 2000 actually. Yeah, 2000
yeah.
The first one. Yeah.
So yeah, you're not quite as old as I am. So talk to me about, or tell our audience, about your resume application process for the John Glenn job, and kind of what you thought set you apart from other applicants.
Yeah, well, I think so we live in this digital age, right? So the big thing right now when we talk about the digital age is that people are going to look through your materials and look for mistakes. They're looking to take their pool of applicants and eliminating people. Especially, with me, I had a lot of head coaching experience prior to that, which may eliminate some of that fine-tooth comb looking that folks do. But nonetheless, regardless, that's one thing. When we live in this database world, mistakes stand out a lot more than what they did back in the day when you and I were working through it. So I think that's one critical thing. The other critical thing when we're talking about just the application process is you want your material to look different or stand out some way. So for example, if it just requires a digital document, still send something to the athletic director that's a physical document, because now you're different than what 90% of the applicants did. That separates you. One of the things that we've done throughout is when we do send supplements, we'll send a supplement that's got maybe a 1-inch longer form with it, so that when they take all the papers and stack them, your name sticks out at the top. So there's little things like that too that you can do to try to make sure that your name recognition in that process gets brought up so that you can get in the room. Because remember, the application, it is simply about getting in the room. You've got to sell yourself when you get in the room. So the application is just making sure that you're meeting their standards of expectations to get into the room, to have that opportunity to try to sell yourself.
So once you've done that and you get into the interview, what's your philosophy in that interview?
Yeah. Well, number one, you got to be yourself. If you truly want the job to be successful, and I think back to that Tecumseh experience, it's got to be a fit for who you are and who that community is, but more importantly, what the administration's looking for. I'm a man like many. I'm full of strengths and weaknesses. And those weaknesses are usually the things that people are going to become disappointed with. the strengths, the things that they usually appreciate. Well, like everybody else, you don't want your weaknesses to be the things that lead to your failure. So it's critical that your administration is looking for the aspects and attributes of your strengths, and they're not looking for your weakness areas to be your strengths, because you're never going to be those things, even if you improve on them. So I think that's a critical thing, that when you're going in, it's not to walk in with this mindset that I got to get this job. Walk in with a mindset that it's got to be a fit for all parties, and if it's not, that's okay.
Well, and that's something that's lost. I think in a lot of jobs, there's so few applicants. People get offered jobs that are not good fits, and if you're super over anxious to get that head coaching job, it's not going to be a good fit. And I look around the state of Michigan, and you can just see certain guys that are perfect fits for wherever they're at, right? Like Gus Kopolka was born to be the head coach at Cedar Springs, and I think Jason Mensing at Whiteford's a great fit, and I think you will be at John Glenn as well. So that's really important. And a part of that, you didn't mention this, but I know you believe this, is you've got to be interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, right? To help secure that fit.
Well, and I think too, with that process, so oftentimes as applicants, we're looking at this process as, man, I really want this, because let's face it, we wouldn't really be applying if we didn't want it, right? And there's this natural sense of failure when we don't get offered the position. We're the guy at prom that's got the girl walking away from us. That's the natural inclination in that natural feel. But the reality is there should be a feeling of gratefulness, because it's not right in that moment. And if there is, and it's not right, why? Maybe I'm not prepared as an applicant. Maybe there's more things that I have to do to be prepared to be successful. If I'm not prepared as an applicant and I get thrown in that position, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good for the school or myself. Or maybe it's philosophically that the things that I believe in, the core things I believe in, may not match those things of that school district or that time. For example, I'm a huge believer in teaching selflessness, grit, and community. Those are my core values, of the things that I want my athletes that participate. And I think every coach would look at that and go, yeah, that makes sense. But because it's a core value, the emphasis on those things are done at such a heightened level. There's a lot of programs that would look at that, or a lot of communities that might look at that and go, man, I don't know if we should emphasize that. Maybe we should emphasize something else more, Well, those communities, I'm not going to be a fit in. The communities that, they may be more interested in, the different attributes that are those areas. So I think you're absolutely right. Ironically, I had a friend today that was offered a position, and I was one of his reference checks. So I talked both the administrator and the friend today. And my one message to both was, don't offer the job to the administrator. I said, don't offer the job and expect a quick answer, because you need to know that this guy feels like it's a fit. And if you rush him to make a decision, you might not get the right employee. And to him, I said, you need to spend a lot of time evaluating, and is this the place I want my daughters to graduate high school from? And if it is, it might be a perfect fit. And I don't know if it is or isn't. Only those people do. But that's a critical process that I think is often overlooked.
Yeah. So you got offered the job at John Glenn, and what month was that? Did you get offered?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was after spring break, so we were mid to late April.
Right. So you've been there about 15 months.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that first 15 months in the transition.
Yeah, and it's been a sprint. First off, I think I put on a good 30 pounds. So I've been effective in some areas. The initial part is all about building relationships. Because we were coming from a pretty successful entity. We had been in the semifinals at White for the year before. How we communicated things was really important to me. I didn't want an announcement coming from, and plus going to the new place, just because I've been a head coach and I've had some success in that venture. I didn't want to have my kids finding out through social media. And I didn't want the other school to have a large gap between them finding out on social media, because as soon as you announce it, it's going to be on social media. I didn't want a large gap between then and the opportunity to meet the new community I was going to work with, because when there's a gap in that time, what happens is everyone tries to deduct conclusions that typically are as completely random as they can be. And although there might be truth to some of them, there's not in the other ones. Mm-hmm. And that's not a good start, because people draw conclusions. So what we did was I had a team meeting at 8 a.m. At Whiteford. And fortunately, we had our interim already set and kind of had it. So we announced the new coach at Whiteford, Todd Teakin, at that time. And then I drove to Westland, and we had a team meeting in Westland so that I could meet the new team there. So that was, I know that's a long-winded answer on a short day, but it was really critical, I think, and how things go out for both districts.
Yeah, especially when you're in the situation you were in.
Yeah, and there was zero controversy that came from it from either side, and that's why I know it was a success. Like, both entities afterwards were happy with how the communication went out. We had a parent meeting that night too at John Glenn. So we went from meeting with the players to then right after school welcoming the parents to do a meet and greet and say hello. So that next month was like basic 101 and expectations. And when I say 101, I mean like we're gonna jog off the practice field, not even run. Like we're gonna wear cleats when we're at practice, not slides. Like, it was basic. We didn't lift weights even. It was all getting to know you stuff. And I didn't feel like it was going to be wise at that time of year to do anything but to get to know the players better. And I was letting them know, like, hey, come summertime, we're going to approach this differently. So then the summer months, so, about a month later, we go into the summer. We went from there to what I would say is like a 85th percentile when it comes to expectations. So we went from what I would say was a 0, even though it was probably a little higher than it was, to 85%, where there was an expectation for attendance. There was an expectation for engagement. There was an expectation for hustle, for appropriate practice gear, things like that. So a lot of things people would take as basic, but we had to teach it. You can't presume that everyone's going to know that. And that was a bit of a surprise for me. It'd been enough time that I hadn't been a head coach that I wasn't necessarily expecting to teach some of these essential skills. So with that, though, too, we had a lot of our superintendent had arranged to make sure kids had food after practice every day. So we had a meal for every kid after practice. So there was a lot of really good things too that helped us build that trust and community as well. And then obviously once you get into season, you go into your in-season mode, and the big thing there and we didn't refer to as year 1, we referred to as year 0, because like a baby when they're born, there's a year of really significant development that occurs, but they're not 1 yet.
Right.
In fact, it's the most development of our lifetime. Right.
Right.
So that's the baby being born is that 0 to 1. So like, that's what we wanted to look at this year as, was year 0. We had to learn to eat and crawl and cry and everything else. So that's what we did. And then when we transitioned to year 1, our approach was different, because now our goal is to be terrible 2s as soon as we can. So now, we got to crank it up and go a different approach. So,
well, that's awesome stuff. I appreciate your time. I know you're in season right now, so I appreciate the 20 minutes that you were able to give us, and have a great season. Thanks.
Thank you.